Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Gabriel Young, and I am the Local and State Policy Director for Lead Filipino, and I will be helping facilitate this meeting on behalf of the Youth Reimagining Public Safety Council. I'll begin sharing my screen. All right. We will begin at 6:35, calling to order and reminding us of our purpose. We are here to engage in a community-led process that we believe can lead to meaningful recommendations for reform and alternatives to policing in our community. Next, I'd like to ask my colleague Paula to read this.
Hola, si necesitan una traducción, hay traducción disponible en español para esta reunión. Nuestro esfuerzo es hacer que esta reunión sea accesible para todos. Si en algún momento durante la reunión tienen dificultades técnicas, llama a Lori Valdez al 408-661-1804 para que podamos resolver esos problemas rápidamente. If you speak English, please select English as your interpretation option now.
Thank you so much, Paula. Next, for this webinar, informing everyone, if you were nominated to serve on this committee by an organization, you should have received an invitation to be a panelist. If you sign in with the email that was sent to it, it should automatically be set. If for some reason you were not automatically set up as a panelist and were nominated, you will be promoted. Please pay attention to your screen to accept the promotion to panelist, as it requires you to accept the promotion. Accessibility. If you or anyone around you have any other suggestions on how to make this meeting more accessible, please email Chris Logan at christopher.l@sacredheartcs.org. Next, we'd like to do a Lan Acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we host this meeting on the lands of the Muwekma Ohlone people, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We commit ourselves to partner with our Indigenous sisters and brothers to celebrate and honor their legacy in our collective work for justice and in our care for these lands we benefit from today. Now, we'd like to invite the Independent Police Auditor for their presentation.
Hello, hang on here. It's weird. My name is Siobhan Nuri. I am the Independent Police Auditor for the City of San Jose. And I was asked to speak about 10 minutes on just a general overview of the recommendations from the committee and general assessment. So I'd first like to say that I haven't done any exhaustive review of any particular one. Any particular one recommendation. And I pretty much focused my recommendation, my review of the recommendations to the ACC sections, 1 through 24. So, and interrupt me if you have questions, but on a very high level, I'm pretty sure the committee recognizes that you do have quite a lot of recommendations, and this is in addition to the recommendations from the various consultants that the city hired. And so to a certain extent, once we get before council, there are going to be a lot of recommendations. It may be worthwhile for your group to consider prioritizing the ones that you feel are more important, because if you don't take that step, other people will do it for you. So that's a general overview of the number of recommendations that you have. Another thing that you might want to consider is more consolidation. I've been listening to this group for a while, and I know there was some discussion about, solving the issue of overlap. So in my latest read through, there still is significant overlap. For example, if you talk about hiring and retention, that's in ACC 8, ACC 13, ACC 16, ACC 20, ACC 22, and ACC 23. It might be good to consolidate those so that the council's attention is focused on one recommendation or two recommendations about hiring and retention. Likewise with training, ACC 3, 11, 13, 16, and 18, I would suggest that perhaps you look at those and see if you could do consolidation. Another one that's kind of a high level is use of definitions. So for example, ACC 5 talks about police accountability for critical incidents, and basically recommendations of administrative leave without pay for first critical incident and then other subsequent actions. But the critical incident is defined as those use of force that cause bodily injury, necessitate medical attention, or resulting in death, disability, or damage of property. So, use of force, as written, this would cover an awful lot of uses of force, because if you have a use of force that leads to a scrape or an abrasion, it would meet this definition. And that would then create, consequences for a lot of uses of force. I think it would be wise to determine at what level of force you want examined. I would recommend something that's above abrasions and scrapes. It might be worthwhile to look at the definition used in 1421, since that definition is becoming more widely known. If perhaps you feel that's not sufficient after you've been able to get all the 1421 cases or using that definition, then consider expanding. But currently, any bodily injury, it's going to be aches, pains, abrasions, scrapes. Damage of property is something that we usually don't see in use of force cases. It would take this to a new, expand to new horizons, which I think would lead to significant pushback. So throughout the recommendations, the term critical incident, I think, should be defined better and narrowed. And again, I would suggest at the first blush to use that's put forth in 1421. Let's see. Because this is going to get a lot of council attention, another thing that comes to mind is your estimate of cost. So some of the estimates of cost are defined and supported by things that can be double checked. Other things are like a cost savings, but there's no reason why you would anticipate a cost savings. I'm looking at let's see, I think it's ACC 4. Yeah, ACC 4 would result in savings. I don't see that, but if there is a rationale for that, it should be included. But if you don't have a strong rationale to base a cost estimate, I do think to be determined is the wiser choice. Because putting something out there that's not supported, will tarnish credibility. And overall, one thing that comes to mind is you have recommendations, and this is true not only for the recommendations that you do, but for the recommendations I do. How do you measure success? So if you're looking at, let's see, let me pick one here. So ACC3, study of internal reporting structures for issues related to discriminatory behavior. You're looking for a review process, an audit, a new structure, and a new value statement. And I'm assuming your goal is to reduce discriminatory behavior. But how will you measure that? Maybe you have an audit every 2 years. You use the first audit as a baseline, and then you see how training helps or doesn't help. But the one thing about training is the officers get an awful lot of training, and sometimes I have my doubts about how effective the training is. So for example, CIT training, most officers have been through that, but I've seen a lot of body-worn camera where I am skeptical about either how attentive the officer was during training or how effective the trainer was. One thing that I think is good that's coming down the road is the body-worn camera audit. So I don't know how the department is structuring that, but things I would like to see in that audit would be, for example, just a standard audit to see, how are officers abiding by the CIT training. That would be something you would see, would you be able to pick up in these audits of body-worn camera. Another thing maybe you could, or maybe the council could direct a more narrowed focus of the audit to, let's do an audit of FTO and recruits to see how they're being trained, how the officers are instructing them or not instructing them in the field. So I kind of have pretty high hopes for the body-worn camera audit, because I think it will show us either that training is going well or that training is not sticking and we need to either revise the training or go to a whole different model of training. Yeah, so those are kind of my high level thoughts, but happy to answer specific questions to the extent I can.
All right, thank you so much. And now we'll open it up to public comment. So here are questions that can guide discussion for the evening. First one,
muchas gracias. Ahora vamos a empezar con el comentario público.
To our work. And secondly is
Nanashi, sorry, Gabriel. Nanashi, I think you're on the English line. Okay, go ahead, Gabriel.
Okay, no problem. Secondly, what policy recommendations?
Lo segundo es cuáles son las recomendaciones de la política.
Meaningfully help the community we are focusing on today. And third, our definition of community safety.
Y lo tercero es la definición de nuestra comunidad.
And for this public comment, we'll limit our comments to 2 minutes a comment, and it can be a Q&A format. Additionally, friendly reminder is please stay on the agenda item at hand, which is the IPA's presentation. So now, out, we'll be putting a timer on the screen, and my colleague Chris will be inviting folks to go off mute. So take it away.
Yeah, just want to ask Peter when you can you put up the PowerPoint timer, and we'll let Jamal go while you're gathering that. Peter, go ahead, Jamal.
What's up, everyone? I'm going to use my 2 minutes to completely go off topic and ramble. Just kidding. I wanted to ask you, Siobhan, you talked about like ways we can strengthen, like to add more data to quantify everything. I guess I'm curious to see how necessary that is, where like we have to present and package this like thoroughly researched request with all this data and all this information when there's already data and information that talks about how kind of policing is failing our community. Like why do we have to package all of this information? And it could be rhetorical. I could just be kind of venting, but I feel like that shouldn't have to be necessary for some of these things to move forward, especially since we don't have all the information necessary to say like this is what they're getting trained on specifically, and this is how we would change it specifically. I don't know. I guess I'm a little curious to hear your perspective.
So can you hear me, Jamal?
Yeah, Siobhan, sorry. I'm so
you.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I just want to check in. I see our interpreter raised their hand. I want to make sure that they have the support they need. Do you need support, Nanachi?
Yes, my apologies. I wasn't assigned actually to the interpretation part.
Got it. All right, let me take care of that.
That's why I was, yes, sorry.
All right, I'll take care of that. Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
Thank you.
So I don't have an opinion one way or another about whether you need to have estimated costs. I'm assuming you're going off some format that somebody gave you, because some of these it's really just too difficult to give an estimated cost. But if you are going to give an estimated cost, then I think it should be, to the extent you can figure it out, or these are some of the costs we anticipate, and then name some of the proposals have actual costs in them that you think will be required. So you could say, anticipated costs and list them, and then say the rest to be determined. But if you don't have any idea of the estimated costs, I would just put to be determined, because I think that's a pretty valid answer instead of guessing at something. And again, I don't know if you need estimated costs. I don't know if that was part of your steering committee's direction.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't.
Does that answer your question, Jamal?
Yeah. I just was trying to see how, your thoughts around how specific we need to be around stats. You talk about outcomes a lot.
Yeah, I think that's something for your steering committee to decide whether or not you want to put in estimated costs or not. It's something that once it gets further on down, the department will come back and say, this is too expensive because X, Y, and Z. But from your perspective, it's my impression that you are going more with the the benefits to the community that you see will render costs associated with the project to be something that the public should support and that the budget process should support.
For sure. Appreciate it.
Okay, I see we have a comment from Blair Beekman. Go ahead, Blair.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the meeting today. I got my little headphone microphone I'm trying to get connected to here. Hi, yeah, I wanted to bring up 2 points. Thanks for the presentation. Around IPA issues and body camera things. One is that the BART board, the last board meeting, they just had I don't know if it was a yearly review or 6-month review of their IPA program and what they're doing. And it was really informative, and the guy's kind of interesting. And BART's been doing, some interesting things. They're one of the initial people starting with the surveillance and technology ordinance things, and they introduced some pretty interesting work. So they can do some good work, and I just thought I'd mention it this time if you want to review that public meeting. I think it was last week. And they reinstated a commissioner who was kind of summarily dismissed. It was kind of a sad dismissal. Well, she was like, there was a technical issue, and it was kind of sad how she was removed for a time and back. It's a pretty interesting story about the future of racial equity for the BART board that raises questions about racial issues that should be of concern. And It was an interesting meeting. And my other quick comment was that with the body camera issue, to simply mention that I hope we're making some efforts in San Jose. I hope we can continue the efforts of how victims of crime going through their court cases, if they need body camera footage, they should be allowed to view it, you know, in the presence of their lawyer, of other, you know, of law enforcement, of officials. They're not really at this point. It's a real hassle for victims of crime to get body camera footage, you know, for their own review process, their own court process. Good luck how we can really work on this. I think it's an issue that I think we can really address. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Blair. Let's see. I see Karina Griswold has their hand raised. Go ahead, raise. I'll allow you to talk. You can unmute and speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I logged in a little bit later. I am a family of an officer involved shooting. My father was killed. And I guess as far as like, I just heard a little bit about the body worn cameras. I think the problem with the department is they pick and choose when they do release things. I feel like they release things when it's favorable to them. And when it's unfavorable, a lot of that footage is doctored and edited to try to give their narrative. I think that, you know, the police chief has said that that's done because he doesn't feel the public is able to make their own opinion. I think a lot of the stuff they release to the public, they pick and choose, and I don't think that's fair to the public. I think the public should have access to anything requested, especially with the, you know, the new law. A lot of us families still can't get records of our loved ones that have been killed in the city of San Jose. I also think as far as data, I think that we're pretty much evidence that, you know, my father was killed in 2004. There's a lot of families since then within that time frame. Policies and procedures have been broken. Training has been broken. That has continued to lead to the same outcome. I don't understand at this point why so much data is required when there's so much evidence out there. It's just a matter of being able to obtain it since they don't like to release anything.
All right, thank you, Karina. I see Homa has their hand raised, so go ahead, Homa.
Thank you, Siobhan, for your feedback. I particularly liked some focusing on some of the possible direction for the body-worn camera audit, just for the purpose of having a stronger background and statement of need. One thing I was curious about is if you knew of any existing police department audit, body-worn camera audit processes that you would recommend looking into or investigating. A lot of my research showed that while it's been about 7 to 10 years that the technology has been around, I didn't come across really clear procedures that San Jose wanted to emulate. So I'm curious if you have any other recommendations on where to look or any other sort of focus of audit process for body-worn cameras.
So the only one I know of in the state is Los Angeles City Police. They started a program about, I think they did a pilot project about 2 years ago, and then they started their actual project about a year ago. And I think I have a contact person that I can send to you that might be able to answer your questions. So I'll try to do that by Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Homa. I'm not sure if your hand is raised from this summer left up. I think we'll want to limit public comment to from the public to one time per agenda item so that we can get through the agenda. So just a note on that. Gabrielle, I think that we have no more hands raised for public comment.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And again, Siobhan, for your presentation. We'll be moving forward with our next agenda item, which would be the Youth Reimagining Public Safety Youth Council presentation. So I invite my fellow colleagues to turn on the cameras and join me at this moment. All right, so hi everyone. Again, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Gabe or Gabriel, and I go by he, his, him pronouns. I am the lead Filipino local and statewide policy director, and I am helping facilitate today's meeting, but mostly a member of this Youth RIPS Council. We have been working very hard the past few months to present you all a portfolio of policies that we believe the youth would like to see here in San Jose. So as we go through this presentation, we'll introduce each other. One by one, we'll talk about who we are, the orgs we're from, and introduce the policies that each of us believes are so crucial to adjusting and implementing in San Jose. So now I'd like to introduce and let Paula walk us through this introduction.
Hi everyone, before we move forward, I just wanted to provide everyone a content warning, as the next slides are going to provide graphic discussions about police violence. So here we have a list of victims of police brutality in San Jose. All these people have passed away due to police violence. Thomas Nguyen, Joseph Torino, Philip Watkins, Mirza Tatlik, Efren Esquivel, Diana Showman, Francis Calon, Byron Rosas, Mark Moraski, Scott Dinham, Ronald Adul, Andrew Joseph Roberts, Anthony Nunez, Albert Manuel Vasquez, Matthew Castillo, Adrian Rivera, David Tobar Jr., Elias Mejia, Richard Jaques, Jennifer Vasquez, Armando Salvatierra, Jacob Dominguez, Francis de la Cruz, Leonel Acevedo, and Anthony Guzman Lopez.
Thank you so much, Paula, for that introduction. So the reason why we started out with that is those names really grounded our purpose as youth, as not only were these people affected by policing in San Jose, but also their families. And we stand here as a testament on the impacts of youth and their encounters with their families of police interactions. So to also further ground us, we split ourselves and our own ideas into four main focuses. So first, we're going to start off discussing about police accountability. Next, we'll talk about police relations and outreach. Thirdly, we'll talk about police force and tactics. And fourth, we'll talk about alternative systems, which we'll define and get into later. To further ground ourselves, we value these three topics: safety, access, and solidarity. So beginning with safety, we focus on building a community where everyone feels safe, especially in wanting to stop violence physically, particularly murders by police, and also emotionally, gaslighting, re-traumatizing police, not knowing how to interact with marginalized communities. Next, we like to focus on accessibility, especially within housing, finding the necessities to live, and being safe and secure in one's own home. Lastly, solidarity. Although we are youth, we want to inspire other people, especially youth in our own communities, to rise up with us. We want to focus on strengthening the relationship between communities and police especially. So with that being said, we're going to dive right in onto our own policy recommendations. So we're going to first start with police accountability. And I'd like to transition it to Jiraiya to talk about our first topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiraiya. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from the NAACP Youth Chapter. And to start off, we wanted to have the following questions answered from the city. How is San Jose implementing state public safety laws, and what is the timeline of these implementations? We wanted to highlight two bills that passed in this past year in the state legislature, SB 2 and SB 490. SB 2 is a bill that introduces a new process of investigation and suspension of those without the fitness of a person to be an officer. We urge the city to utilize this process to decertify officers that have committed abuses of power, exuded racial bias, and other serious misconduct. Also, we urge the city to immediately ban knee to neck holds or any carotid holds or holds that restricts breathing. SJPD has a history of using these holds, and we want to ensure that the implementation of AB 490 is swift and effective throughout the force. Next, we want the Office of Administration, Policy, and Intergovernmental Relations to prioritize and support AB 1947 and AB 988. AB 1947 would ensure that police departments can properly recognize, report, and respond to hate crimes. San Jose saw a surge in Asian hate crimes and is one of the most diverse cities in the state. This bill can ensure that hate crimes are codified and officers can respond properly to these crimes. AB 988, on the other hand, would designate 988 as a 3-digit number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Using this phone number would not only lighten the casework for SJPD and the police departments across the state, but it would also alleviate the stress of those experiencing a mental health crisis to contact one short phone number instead of dialing 911.
Thank you so much, Jiraiya. So now moving on to a federal level, we really want to focus on federal advocacy, particularly our own senator's bill that is being debated upon right now. That is Senate Bill 2103, the Accountability for Federal Law Enforcement Act. So this act will provide individuals the right to sue federal law enforcement officers and agencies in civil court for a violation of their civil and constitutional rights. Current law prevents individuals from filing a lawsuit against a federal law enforcement officer in many cases. Though lawsuits against state and local law enforcement officers are allowed, the United States Supreme Court has previously ruled that the federal government will not be liable in a suit unless it waives its immunity and consents. Currently, a person can only seek civil damages against federal officers for a narrow set of claims, including unreasonable searches and seizures by federal officers, gender discrimination towards a federal employee, and inadequate medical treatment to a federal inmate. Federal law enforcement has recently come under scrutiny for their use of force against peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. last summer. That included the use of tear gas against demonstrators. It is unclear whether a lawsuit will be allowed to proceed against federal law enforcement given the narrow scope of allowable claims. Last year, the United States Supreme Court in Hernandez versus Mesa declined to hold a United States Border Patrol agent liable for killing Sergio Hernandez, a teenage boy who was playing on the Mexican side of the canal that separates El Paso and Juarez. According to the court, it did not fit within the narrow parameters that currently allow for individuals to sue federal law enforcement officials. While the Supreme Court has addressed the absence of a right of action against federal officers before, the scope of the provided remedy has been kept extremely narrow. Without a statute in place, this right will continue to be underutilized and could disappear whenever the court sees fit. And because the court is not seeing it at the time, it is important that San Jose really takes the stance to lobbying and taking a more positive communication route to have Senator Alex Padilla and other California senators, representatives, and anyone in the United States to uphold this bill.
Okay, next up, we want to talk about accountability in our own community. Our group has come up with multiple ideas to keep SJPD accountable in our own community right here in San Jose. And one of the first things is incorporating community groups with youth into the auditing process. So whenever the San Jose Police Department is being audited, we want to ensure that the youth voices continue to be heard. So groups like the NAACP Youth Chapter, Lead Filipino, Hero Tent, we want all of them to be included in this process. Another idea that we had was having the police chief position instead be an elected position made by the people of San Jose. And this campaign in particular can only accept money from grassroots campaigns and not from political actions committee or corporations. We want this race to also align with the mayoral race in order to increase voter participation. The city of Santa Clara already does this. And in order to increase the accountability of the police chief, we want these positions to be elected. And in order to prevent some of the problems that happen with the Santa Clara race, we want to ensure that the candidates have certain qualifications prior to running for that seat. For example, they have a certain level of position in the police department, but prior to applying to run a campaign. And lastly, we want the budget process to be more transparent. Us as youths are unsure of what the mayor does whenever he does the police budget every year. We want more detail in what's in the budget and how the process is gone. And we want more descriptions of what's in the budget and how it's made, along with a longer timeline and increased advertising on how this process works.
Thank you so much, Jiraiya. Jumping into accountability in particular, here in the youth, we recognize that the IPA has already been established, but we would like to see a civilian independent auditing office separate from the police or city government. And the kind of requirements that we want to see civilians have with this is that they would be able to be present with police at all times, so they're able to report on the before, during, and after interactions that police have with whoever they're arresting or interacting with. By doing so, they'll be able to record police movements, and with the purpose to make SJPD better and hold them accountable in the moment. Moreover, as Jiraiya has mentioned, we would like this group to be in charge of helping audit the SJPD budget and meet with the police chief to go over SJPD's actions periodically. However, the question always will be, who will staff this group? And as we mentioned, civilians, particularly community liaisons and representatives. We'd like to see community-based organization leaders be in this position and be paid for their work. Particularly, we'd like to see them reflect San Jose's diversity, such as those experiencing homelessness, those who are hard of hearing, those who don't speak English, and those experiencing a disability. Additionally, we would like to have a youth auditing group. This group would consist of high schoolers and college students from ages 15 through 20 years old and also be a paid position. They won't necessarily be like the adult civilian group that follow police and write reports, but create youth opinions on police reports and actions and write their own opinions for others. Additionally, they would write up recommendations on law enforcement's actions, and for kind of imagining and visualizing this, our own current Youth RIPS Council can serve as a base model, akin to how this current council would be like the civilian auditing group we believe to be. The reason why we brought up accountability first is that we recognize that keeping law enforcement accountable is the first step in making change happen. But we know that sometimes by keeping them accountable, it's difficult to really find and tangible change. And hence why I would like to introduce El and Yusuf to talk about police relations and outreach and how that can be reformed and our own recommendations on it.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lucia. I am more commonly known as Elle. My pronouns are they, them. And both me and my partner Yusuf are from Hero Tent, grassroots organization here in San Jose. We're talking about police relations and outreach. If we could go to the next slide, that's awesome. Thank you. So current police outreach, the San Jose Police Department is currently involved in various responsibilities in relations to youth. This can be just safety education and crossing guards, for example. But what's interesting is most of their outreach specifically is on crime prevention, with the focus on youth safety and specifically an emphasis on gang prevention and education. This is shown through the Teen Kids program. And this is information we're getting directly from their website. This is in relations to our recommendations, because if we go on to the next slide, most of the focus on crime prevention doesn't actually address the root causes of the causes for gangs and most crime, which is needs-based. So if we're going to do a little deep dive in understanding the root causes, if there's going to be so much attention poured into this specific outreach, it has been shown that the root causes are protection, a form of income, usually through prior socializations, either a family member or friend, and it's not based specifically on race or personality traits. which a lot of this outreach is focused on specific neighborhoods, which we already has been shown to cause racial disparities within our carceral system, and overall impacting a community here in San Jose. So for our next slide.
Something that's important in how we approach this work or how we think about it is that we have to flip the script and the narrative a little. Oftentimes, police relations are framed in such a way where the burden of compromising or accepting or even tolerating is placed on the community and community members, as opposed to being placed on police and those in power, in positions of power. And so, with that said, too, a more trauma-informed approach would be for police and those in power to center the community's comforts and concerns in their approaches, actions, and in their decisions. It doesn't make sense, except it makes no sense except for those most targeted and oppressed by police to be the ones who should change their perspectives while facing the same systemic oppressions. It would be gaslighting, and it would be a form of abuse. And so for police to have a better relation with their community, police are the ones who need to humanize and understand their community. And with that said, something that we would like to propose is removing police from community events. And if a need for security exists, replacing them with private security that does not bear arms or lethal weapons. And the other thing is we also want to increase transparency and community, cooperation in making decisions. And so increasing advertising for public meetings and making them more accessible, so that community members are aware of important decisions that are being made, and so they can partake in them. We can go to the next slide. We also find that it's really important when we talk about visions for society and how like the fact that we want to lessen incarceration rates and keep youth out of jails and out of carceral systems, then it would only follow and it would only make sense that we divest from jails and carceral systems altogether. And also we should divest from those systems and invest instead into behavioral health services and mental health services, and remove SROs, and in particular San Jose Police Department, as the case is in San Jose, from all of SJUSD campuses and high schools. And then we also would like to make sure that there is a higher emphasis on teaching students their legal rights, and making sure to pay for that education as well, because a lot of people who don't know their rights will often compromise in them. So such as what is legal during a traffic stop, what is not, et cetera, et cetera. And we propose.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. But I wanted to mention that all of these points, in terms of creating safer spaces for youth by removing SROs and educating them, it goes to our recommendation of power to the students, where we, instead of forcing again, that idea of forcing our community to adhere to police when we've already seen how harmful that is to our communities. It all falls into that recommendation. Sorry to cut you off, Yusuf.
Oh, no, you're good. But, well, actually, you have the next slide.
Yeah, we're going to go to the next slide, which is in relation to the LGBTQ plus community. We understand that San Jose Police Department already has an LGBTQ plus community liaison, which works within the community and for specific issues. But one of the main issues is that anti-LGBTQ plus discrimination still persists during police interactions. So our proposals as a group would be training officers on how to interact with members of the LGBTQ plus community, rather than just getting this information from multiple sources like the LGBT Youth Center rather than just a single source. This can be further delved into on later on in the presentation when we do talk about police training. But this training would be face-to-face to make it more personal, and also implementing graded assessments, because when we talk about the LGBTQ plus community, there is a lot of information, history, biases. There is a different understanding of gender identity than what is normally known. So we felt it necessary that the emphasis was put on the police officers to learn more about our community and how to better support us. We would employ supportive organizations to create this curriculum, and all of this also ties into our recommendation for the increase and expansion of safe spaces. This slide is talking specifically about LGBTQ plus friendly spaces, but I know we didn't necessarily tie this in with a nice little bow, but it goes back to crime prevention, because when safe spaces are created, it creates that sense of community. It creates something else to do that would divert youth from having interactions with the law in the first place. But yeah, if we can move on to the next slide.
So over here, something we want to focus on as well, and we're focusing on this also in our recommendations, is that we want to make sure the officers responding to certain situations are those most most aware of either the culture of the situation they're responding to. So so a lot of officers don't reside in the city of San Jose. That is something that we need to change, and we're proposing that through policy. And then we also want to make sure, like, for example, if a situation, if they are responding to a situation where people or people of color, it would be officers who know their culture best, or officers who are also like people of color who are responding to that situation. And then we also want to create an impacted families roundtable, so that those most impacted by carceral systems and by police injustices, their voices are more centered in the decisions that are made. And on the next slide, there is generally a graph that shows the disparities between, the proportionality of how many white officers there are within the police department versus, the actual city of San Jose and its population distribution. I won't stay on this slide too long, but I wanted to go ahead and move over to talking about police force and tactics. Lahari and Ezra can take that over.
Hello everyone, I'm Lahari and I'm representing Apolli. So our first focus is mental health response, because we do acknowledge that there's already a mental health response unit that was fully launched last year. So we want to expand upon it and give our own input on how we can improve this. We want to ensure that the response team only has mental health professionals instead of police following them to reduce police involvement and ensure the person in need of help is as safe as possible. And in case there needs to be police present, we want to guarantee that they're educated about how to approach those in need of help, which is why we suggest an increase in resources about the different types of mental health related issues to help officers respond appropriately. So although there are resources being created, we notice that there's a lack of outreach. As a youth in the generation that is advocating for mental health and reducing stigma around it, we need to be aware of the resources more than anyone else. We suggest outreach through social media like Instagram, as well as reaching out to organizations within the city that can help spread the message as well. And let San Jose residents know that they will be safe if there's a mental health crisis in need. And because there's change being made, but no one is aware of the resources, there's really no point in them, which is why we're advocating for research. We'll go more into detail about how exactly this rapid response team will work later in the presentation.
Just a quick note. Thank you so much, Lahari. We want to slow down just a smidge so our interpreters will be able to hear and interpret at the same time. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So with the housing prices in San Jose spiking, as homelessness has been on constant increase, it's crucial that SJDP knows how to approach homelessness and individuals properly. There are several cities where they have clinical therapists approach the individuals and try to help them out in a way that does not involve police. An example will be Long Beach's department that includes service providers, health officials, and park superintendents. They have more experience and training when it comes to dealing with unhoused, so it reduces the need of police involvement and ensures the unhoused individual feels safe. The approach is similar to those who are in need of mental health assistance, where we want to reduce police involvement by redirecting callers to community partners that can provide housing and necessary support instead of having police being directly involved. With around 20% of unhoused individuals having a severe mental health disorder, we have to ensure that they do not feel threatened and feel ready and secure as they seek proper support.
And Lahari, you might want to slow down just a little bit more. It may be helpful to pause. I think you're reading a script if you have it like a period or comma. So, okay.
So increased focus on human trafficking. California, specifically the Bay Area, is one of the nation's top destinations for trafficking. Because of the diversity in Bay Area and the numerous immigrants living here, the region becomes a hotspot for human trafficking. Specifically, a lot of the victims are illegal immigrants or have other barriers that hinder them from expressing their emotions because they're afraid of the consequences, which is why it's important to educate police for the different situations they may be in and how to approach these victims in different scenarios. We recognize that SJDP worked with an organization called SBCEHT for 8 months, where they created focus groups where people from different communities share their experiences. We want to expand upon this collaboration since it was only short term, and we want to make sure SJDP is constantly informed and better educated about the different experiences in San Jose. And we also want to increase transparency in how the funds that SJDP and the Human Trafficking Task Force are being used. There is a document that shows that the departments have received numerous grants and thousands of dollars and one-time funds to help improve and increase resources regarding human trafficking. However, there is no information available about what the task force is doing to improve the quality of life for San Jose residents using this money, which is why we want to increase transparency so we know what this department is doing and how it can be improved to ensure a good quality of life for San Jose residents.
Hi, my name is Ezra Flecka. I'm from the African American Community Services Agency, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And this part of the slideshow will be about demilitarizing and decreasing police brutality. And the first method we want to focus on is training with an emphasis on alternatives to using weapons and physical brutality. And in particular, redistributing the San Jose Police Department budget to fund various trainings and screenings, intervening to stop officers who are using excessive force and reporting them to the supervisor, and providing resources, including first aid kits to those who are injured, are ways to de-escalate high-stress situations without the use of weapons. And then the second topic we want to focus on is intervention and prevention for police officers. Using minimum amount of force to apprehend the subject with specific guidelines for the types of forces and tools authorized for a given level of resistance, and using de-escalation tactics, including verbalization, creating distance, time, and space, and tactile repositioning are ways to prevent the use of unnecessary force, as well as banning chokeholds, strangleholds, and other excessive forms of violence to keep the subject safe. And then there was a study done by the American Civil Liberties Union of Washington, which conducted 70 empirical studies of body-worn cameras, and they found that the body cameras have not had a statistically significant effect in decreasing police brutality. And so redesigning them is a way to help this. And so how can we redesign body cameras to capture both the perspective of the officer and the civilian? And ways to do this is to widen the lenses, improve the battery length of the cameras, and making sure that the body camera is 360 so that it both captures the perspective of the officer and the civilian, as well as allowing the footage to be shared to the general public, and preventing the officer from having any power in manipulating the footage as well. And next topic that I want to talk about is in-depth screening of the officers and conducting mental health screening tests. The Plan B project was an investigation conducted by a Philadelphia lawyer, Emily Baker White, and she did background research on current retired police officers. And she found that 1 in 5 of the current officers and 2 in 5 of the retired officers showed bias, applauded violence, and used dehumanizing language on the internet. And so through conducting screenings, this could be prevented, and especially conducting mental health screenings shows that upcoming officers are not coming in with any chronic mental illnesses that may affect with the work that they conduct. Yeah, and the last topic that I want to talk about is reforming the diversity, inclusion, and training aspect of the San Jose Police Department, and requiring graded ethnic studies and cultural awareness classes ensures that the officers have competent cultural awareness, and so they're better able to communicate with marginalized communities, since they'll be more able to communicate with those who come from different backgrounds, as well as reallocating the money instead of funding weapons or anything like that. Reallocating this money for associate degrees or bachelor degrees, so that police become more educated within the culture, or communicating with those different backgrounds from them, and screening officers for records of racism, homophobia, and transphobia as well, so that the relationship between the police and the communities of color are improved.
Thank you so much, Lahari and Ezra. Now I'd like to invite Alex and Paula to talk about alternative systems.
Hi everyone, my name is Paula Escobar and I go by she, her pronouns. I'm here on the council and I'm also representative from the San Jose Youth Commission.
Hi, I'm Alex. I use they or he pronouns, and I'm here on behalf of the LGBTQ youth space in downtown San Jose. I really wanted to anchor us first in needs. We as humans are all varying, we all have varying and different needs. And next slide, please. That also applies to policing. We typically have this conception of police solely as crime fighters. What we don't realize sometimes is that the jobs of police are actually, or the tasks that we give to police actually span a wide range of areas. And these are tasks that can really be delegated to other professions and historically have been. Next slide, please. As Lahari mentioned earlier, one of the recommendations we wanted to make is a mental health rapid response team, making sure that when people call 911, specifically because of a mental health crisis, that the people who are calling are getting the care that they need. In San Jose, actually, a significant portion of the fatal events or fatal police interactions transpired because of a call made about a mental health crisis. If we remove police officers from this equation, that we can start to see a shift towards people actually getting the care that they need. And so what this would look like is units made up of at least one trained mental health professional and one person trained in first aid. And the big takeaway, they are not cops. They aren't wearing uniforms. They are not carrying guns. And the goal is not crime focused. It's really focused on, next slide, please. On the person that needs care, making sure that they're physically safe, and then addressing their emotional and mental needs. What is causing like a crisis? How do we fix it? And how do we follow up so that hopefully something like this can not happen again? Next slide, please. Thanks. And then one of the other recommendations we wanted to make was really hammering in on decriminalizing drugs, because that's another really common precipitator to police interactions is suspected drug activity. How this would look is kind of a two-prong approach. First, decriminalizing drugs, making on the legislative level, backing off of the harsh surveillance and carceral punishment of drug users, and at the same time providing harm reduction supplies in free, readily available harm reduction supplies in public spaces. Next slide, please. And although those are just two recommendations that we have, but again, like with the larger RIPS Council and the larger community, there's an entire world we can build, an entire world where when we have needs, we can get them met in a way that doesn't involve violence. There's an entire network of people that we can build focused on care and love. And that's really what the world we want to build. That's why we're doing this work. Next slide, please. And then also another recommendation was really focusing in on reallocating the parts of the the bloated police budget, and using some of this extra funding to fund the recommendations that we've been giving. I'll hand it over to Paula.
Yeah, so going off of Alex, we really want to emphasize the reallocation, because when you think about when you look at all the budgets and where the money goes to within our city, you'll see so much money going in to the police department, and you really want to take a step back and question, where are funds going to? How are these funds actually supporting the people that the city is supposed to serve? You know, we have these military-grade equipment. We have helicopters constantly going above our communities and policing them. We have things such as drones, and we have so many investments into these resources that just, again, are not helping our community. Next slide, please. So this is just a quote from something done by the KTVU. In excessive force and wrongful death civil settlements between 2015 and 2020, the San Jose Police Department, which has only about 1,000 officers, paid about $17.5 million. So you can see it's costing our own city to continue wrongfully acting upon its citizens, and we have so much to improve on. We have so much to do in order to regain the trust of our communities and invest back into them, invest back into resources that will uplift people instead of policing them. Next slide. So the biggest takeaway from this is that, if we have so much money going towards the police budget, policing people and policing communities in our own city, we should instead allocate that money towards things that are going to help them. And we want to create a space in a world where people don't have to worry about meeting their basic needs, and we can all meet our full potential. And I think that is the vision we need to take forward as a city, and what we need to move forward with as we re-envision what safety is and what it can be.
So finally, from all of us here on the Youth RIPS Council, we just want to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share our own policy recommendations and give us a space to provide youth and represent them within policymaking. So as we're closing this up, we'd like to move on to a public comment portion of the time. We'll allot 2 minutes per public comment and only go for one time, just as last time. And we'll start off with this questions of how do we feel the info we heard can directly be tied to our work and our own definition of community safety. So I'll stop sharing and then we'll take questions as they come. And you can feel free to direct them to any member on the Youth Council to answer from our presentation.
I see Pancho's hand first. Go ahead, Pancho.
Point of order, I want to see, Gabriel, if you would indulge me, I'd like to make a recommendation that, make a motion that the RIPS committee actually accept your report in total, and I'd like to ask for the committee to accept your recommendations to include them in our final report to the City Council.
Second.
I also second. Third.
Seeing that this motion has received a third, the motion passes. And the
sorry, Gabriel.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
Sorry, Gabriel. It's the first and second, so now you'll receive discussion on the motion. Then we'll take a vote.
All right, and now what? Oh, sorry, Darcy. Go ahead.
So just happy to support the motion. Happy to second the motion. Wondering, some of these policies are very, very similar to some of the policies that are already in the proposal, specifically the one around police on school campuses. So I'm wondering if in between now and the time when we write the report, maybe there could be some conversation between the authors of tonight's policy and the policy around drug-related offenses and schools campuses. And there was some additional feedback that came from some of the listening sessions, particularly the one we had with debug families, that might be useful in the combining of those two policies. So I will send those notes I have from that meeting to you all, and I hope that maybe you guys can merge those two. They're the same topic, so it's not even really merging, just making sure that everyone's language gets involved, gets added into the policy at the end. I'm wondering if maybe you guys would be willing to do that.
Yes, definitely, Darcy. So we're in the process of making sure our one-pagers are on that Google Sheet, similar to how y'all did it as well. And then we'll send that over, and then on each one-pager for whoever had that policy that you're describing, there's a point of contact info for you to get in contact with them as well.
Great. And they're Hero 10. The ones the two policies that were written for this other spreadsheet are written by Hero 10. I know you guys are involved with them. I see you guys, you have folks from Hero 10 on your committee too, so I'm hoping that'll be pretty easy. Thank you. This was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Discussions are underway to work together.
All right, I think the order is going to be, I think it's Blair, Jamal, and then Sharon. So go ahead, Blair. Let me allow you to talk. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks a lot for this item. It was really nice to learn. It was really nice to just be around. I am not around these things at all enough in my life, and I really, really need it. And it was a great, great presentation for myself. To work towards an auditing process between community and police and community and city government is awesome. The city auditor just gave I think his yearly report yesterday, and it was good. And they've done some interesting work with racial equity. To have a community part in the process, I think can just add a lot more. And boy, the steps to learn how we can all do that together, that's creating the future of a more community democratic process. That the work that I do with openness and accountability with surveillance technology, it's based on the same things. It's based on the idea of how community can have a much more important part in how technology is talked about in the future of a community. And that's cool, that's important. So yeah, it's nice to hear these things and what's really, really possible for our future. And it doesn't have to be that far away. And it may be another 20 or 30 years, but it'll be nice to be able to work on these things, and something can really interesting come to fruition perhaps in the next 10 years. So good luck in your efforts with this. We're all, I guess, in some way trying to work towards a community process. And that oversight is democracy in action. And it's really interesting for our future. I think it's the ideas of sustainability. And good luck in all of our efforts and how we can explain this and job with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Binkman.
Okay, Jamal, and then Sharon, then Karina.
Yeah, just a quick question. When you say the whole report to be submitted, Pancho, are you just talking about just all the recommendations, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think. Thank you for asking for the clarification. What I'd like to see, my motion is that we accept the report in total and we include them as a section of our final, as a section of the final report. So, so it doesn't take away from anything that the main RIPS committee and other things. If we have recommendations that are similar, it could be just, this is just emphasizing them. So I look at their report as being one that's comprehensive and looking at everything together. It's not just pick and choosing between which of the recommendations we like. I'd like to respect their autonomy in this process and be able to present them as a whole as a section of the final report.
For sure, sounds good.
I have a question.
Darcy, sorry, Darcy. We got Sharon, Karina, and then Sharon. I'll allow you to talk. Okay, go ahead, Sharon.
Okay, can I get clarification before I start? Because you put a question up there and I didn't get a chance to finish reading the question, but I did have a comment. If not, then that's okay because my time is taken away. One thing I wanted to point out when you had mentioned about outreach within the community from law enforcement, and I just wanted to mention that comes from the top, and we're talking about the chief, like in an instance where Chief Manta has met with some of the impacted families of Deba twice, and then he decided that he's not going to meet with us anymore. And he says he kind of implied that we have a hidden agenda, but basically what we're trying to do is tell him what some of the things, how some of the things the police behavior affects us, like criminalizing our loved ones out in the public and putting out videos that they have pointed out things in their favor. So if you can't get it from the top, then there is no outreach. And the other thing I wanted to point out, when you talk about a non-lethal response for an emergency, San Jose State's new chief of police has said he will not accept, I don't remember his exact word, but basically a non-lethal response is not something that they would want on campus. He would have to have the police involved because he quite frankly said that the person that they call about their loved one that's having whatever type of an episode could get violent, and the people that are not armed or not trained police officers would not be able to handle that. So all that you put in a lot of work and made a lot of suggestions, and they're good, but without any cooperation on the top or for leadership is not going to happen.
Thank you, Sharon. Karina and then Darcy. Try now, Karina.
Hi, can you hear me? Did it go through?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hi, my name is Karina. I am an impacted family. I just now heard from Sharon that Mata doesn't want to meet with us anymore, which is really disheartening because we thought he was listening and wanting to kind of listen. So that's kind of awful. I want to say, you know, it's really good to see kids being aware of what's going on in the world. I had no idea until my father was killed. I do want to say, though, one of my main concerns is I feel like there's a lot of talk about like policy changes and oversight. But my biggest concern is that there's no steps within the department to discipline the officers. There's no paper trail to get them fired with their union. So I think that's something that really needs to, needs to be the number one priority for everything else to fall in place. I don't think if they're not getting disciplined for not following the training, I don't think as much training as we throw at them, they're going to follow it, because if they don't follow it, there's no consequences. A lot of them are getting promoted. A lot of them are getting promoted where they're undergoing internal investigations for misconduct. So I don't think necessarily like training and oversight is gonna work unless that oversight or the people that are doing that have some sort of ability to make sure that the discipline is happening and there's follow through with it in order to get them out, because the chief often says he can't because of the union.
Thank you so much for that, Karina. One of our main points for accountability is SB2, and SB2 is that pipeline for police chiefs to be able to decertify police officers for their misconduct. So we want to give you the assurance that that's definitely on our radar, and we are hoping that the implementation of SB2 and state law will change that.
Thank you. Let's go with Darcy and then Lori.
Okay, I have a question about the motion again. Okay, so the motion was, I just want to make sure I heard it clearly. And thanks, Jamal, for the clarification question. So we're adding the policies we heard today just as like a separate policy thing. So if there is a word for word almost same policy on one list, it's fine because it's just reinforcing on this other list. Like it's a completely separate list of policies just going forward in the same report. Because in which case I would, take back my thoughts around merging the two if there isn't the need to, because they're going to be a separate agenda or a separate list.
My suggestion is that we can, for example, take into consideration in our proposals, like some of the language and areas of emphasis from their report, but rather than being able to say this is better or ours is better or whatever, and we combine them, being able to accept them as a whole, because there's a cohesive thread in their comprehensive work. So we'd be able to do that. And if we want to include or not include different elements, that would be up to our process over the next few weeks.
Fantastic. Okay, then that's clear. Thank you. And I think we still have to, I don't know if we're still in discussion on the motion, but I just want to make sure we don't lose track of like voting on the motion.
Yep, we got 2 more comments. Might be a good idea for these to be the last 2, since we're at 7:55. Lori and then Kiana.
Hi, I'm commenting, Gabriel, on SB2. You mentioned about the decertification bill and how police chiefs will be able to do it. And I have a question for you, because I know we, the families, we were following it and we were part of it for, we were going for it, but did it change anywhere down the line where the officers, like the people who are going to be making the suggestions for decertification, are there any impacted members of the community part of this, or is it still all police and people who are from, you know, retired police and stuff like that? Because in other words, we had AB 392, right? We passed that bill and it got watered down and it didn't do nothing. It didn't stop police from killing us. And even if we have SB 2 and we say we're going to decertify them, if the people who are making the to decertify them, if the people who are making the decisions to decertify them are the same people who always get the bills watered down, how is that going to be effective? And if San Jose PD doesn't even abide by half the laws that are implemented, like 1421 and AB 748, how do we expect them to abide by SB 2 if, once again, police are going to be policing themselves?
Thank you so much for your question, Jariah. Would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, so I completely hear you and we completely agree with that. We mentioned in our proposal that we wanted the police to be audited by a completely separate unit. And so we really want to see how SB2 is going to be implemented. We want to put pressure on city council and give them the opportunity to give that transparency on how they're going to implement SB2 in their system. And so us as a group, we really wanted to bring that to the forefront and be like, hey, this is something that we want to see happen. This is something that needs to happen in order for the credibility of the San Jose Police Department to be fulfilled. And so we're asking city council, like, how are you going to implement this? How is this going to work? And we want to push for that separate auditing system as well. And so that's just something that we wanted to bring up and really push on them, like show them how SB2 is going to work and have that accountability on us as a community.
Okay, Jariah, so do you know that SB 2 was passed, but is it at the state level? Who are the people at the state level? So are they those people that are making the suggestion, or is it going to be at each individual department or city or county that's going to be having that decertification ability for the police?
So it was passed at the state level, but then we didn't look into the details of the bill. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it would be the department themselves and the city on how it's going to be implemented. But then since it is state law, like you said, like they have to follow it, but we want as a community to see how it's going to be implemented because we don't have the answer for that yet. We don't have the how is it going to be implemented. That was the main point that we wanted to put across on the presentation. Like we want to know how because we don't know how. And like we want SB2 to really be utilized and be pushed through the department so that we can see the impacts of it being implemented.
Additionally to Jariah, there is a very straightforward process in the bill's language that states that if someone from the public submits a complaint to the police department, that will be used as a basis for decertification. And once an officer has been decertified, they cannot join a law enforcement office ever again.
How is that going to work with the arbitration process, though?
Again, we don't know how it is within San Jose or SJPD, hence why our main focus of our presentation was having San Jose City Council and SJPD release how they are implementing it.
I commend you guys on your work, and I hope you guys can push and get what we need done because the families have been unsuccessful. They blow us off like we're the plague. So if the youth can get it for us, we support you 110%. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Right. And then Kiana.
Thank you. I will just be really quick. I just wanted to offer that maybe we could have 1 or 2 youth join us on the final report, like kind of like working group that we have to put that together. But I'm sorry if that's already been offered as an idea. I'm unclear what the current motion is.
Current motion is to accept the youth report and recommendations as a separate section within our final report. All right.
All right.
Well, yeah, Gabrielle, I'll leave it up to you. I know we have some more hands raised. I know it's 8 o'clock. Do we want to? Oh, looks like Darcy Mary lowered her hand. Okay, never mind.
Well, I just wanted to, I just didn't know about Kenna's, if that was a question, if we wanted to like put some formality around what she just said. I thought that was a good idea. If we need to put any formality around what Kenna just
I was
said.
going to do a point of order because I know, Pancho, correct me if I'm wrong. So was your motion to approve it already by like unanimous consent and it already got seconded? Or Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, or are we still voting by roll call as you mentioned earlier?
Believe we'll be voting by roll call. That's the current process that we're in right now.
Okay.
And so since I think there's 8 members, I think I can do it pretty quickly present tonight. I guess you'll want to entertain a call to question.
Yes, the chair would highly encourage motion to move into voting on the motion that was presented to accept the Youth Council report as its own separate report.
So
Are we raising our hands, Chris? Are we raising our hands or are we just saying aye?
Yeah, Laura, I just need you to say call to question. I need the voting member to say call to question.
Call the question.
Great. All right. So I'll just read the people who are here. Jamal. He might have had to step away. Jesse or Kiana.
Yes.
Darcy.
Yes.
Ihoma or Pastor Sammy.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Poncho. Lori.
Yes.
And Jim.
Yes.
Are there any other? Are there any members who I missed?
Yeah,
in the roll?
Rosie's on, but she's on as a attendee. She's not on as a panelist for whatever reason, but she's on.
Yeah. Debug only gets 1 vote, and so
No, they do. They get 2.
Oh, they get 2. Thanks,
Yeah.
Poncho. Let me try to promote her again.
And
Rosie-
Maria too, I think.
Oh, thank you. And Maria, thanks for catching that. So Maria, how will you vote for the motion?
No estoy un poquito de acuerdo. Yo mandé un correo con unas preguntas. Me gustaría mandárselos por Poncho para la siguiente junta. No estoy un poquito de acuerdo en todo.
Okay, so you're voting no. Thank you. And then Rosie.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 8 ayes and 1 no vote, so the motion passes.
All right, on behalf of the Youth Reps Council, we just want to say thank you so much again, and we look forward to continuing this process with you all.
Wait, sorry, Chris, can I ask, is it possible to entertain a motion to have 2 youth representatives on the Youth Council join us in the final reporting, like creating the final report?
I mean, we can just have an agreement that will happen. I don't know if we need a motion, but we can if you like.
If we don't need to, it's okay.
We don't need to. It's not necessary. We can just make sure it happens. All right, Gabrielle, we just have a couple more items on the agenda.
Yep, it's the steering committee report.
Don't know if there was anyone planning to report, but if you go to the next slide, just so you know, the next 2 meetings are the 6th and the 13th.
I think the recommendation from the steering committee was that we would start next week on being able to vote on the final proposals. So one thing I would recommend to the members of the steering committee, please visit the recommendations sheet. They are the proposals that have been there. We want to be able to go through them efficiently over the next in groups over the next couple of meetings to try to make sure that we can finalize those proposals. So again, there's been some recommendations we heard from Siobhan and feedback from about how we might want to consolidate some of them. and being able to consider them all. And hopefully we can do as cohesive a job as the Youth Council has done in terms of coming up with a very strong, comprehensive list of proposals. So next week, April 6th, we're going to be working through them. We'd like to make sure that they all get presented as groups, and then hopefully we can ratify them, over the next few weeks. Anything else from steering committee members? Thank you.
All right. Point of order. Are we still proceeding with the public comment, seeing that it is past the meeting time?
Yep, legally we're required to do public comment for each agenda item.
All right, seeing that it is already past the expected time for finishing, I'll be opening up public comment, but just limiting it to 1 minute. So if any member of the public has something they'd like to say, please raise your hand.
I see Blair Meekman has his hand raised. Go ahead, Blair.
Hi, thank you. I don't think this may not be quite related to steering committee issues, but you were doing some interesting subcommittee work with Police Chief Mata. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with him, why he is not communicating with yourselves right now. I hope communication lines can continue to be open, and maybe him not attending these final meetings can be interesting, an interesting choice for all of us, I think. And we should say that openly and clearly, and really work on keeping good lines of communication open and just patching over whatever's gone wrong possibly. And good luck how you can do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Binkman. Any other member from the public wishing to make a comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll proceed with the next item on our agenda. So at this moment, it is an open forum. So we entertaining anyone who would like to say anything within the scope of public safety and or just anything for about a minute.
I want to mention, if everybody knows about the recent shooting, San Jose PD.
Sorry,
Lauren.
Yeah, sorry, Lauren, we got two hands raised, and so we can have you go after Maria and then Blair. Maria, you may unmute and speak.
Sí, muy buenas noches a todos. Un pequeño comentario. Me gustaría que todos los que están aquí hiciéramos un repaso en cada comunidad, escucháramos. En uno de los puntos que mencionan, entiendo cuando ellos empiezan los oficiales se tienen que defender. Pongámonos del lado de cuando son personas armadas y son de peligro, que están salvando nuestras vidas. Si nosotros nos ponemos del otro lado de las oficiales, son humanos igual que nosotros, ellos arriesgan su vida por nosotros. Yo pienso que si todos hacemos un recorrido en cada comunidad, sería algo más transparente y no solamente tomar encuestas de otros estados. Y yo los invito, yo soy parte del líder de una comunidad de Cadillac Winchester, donde estamos luchando día a día contra pandillas, que este es un barrio muy peligroso y realmente es una lucha que no es fácil. Yo los invito, pertenezcan, asistan a nuestras juntas para que escuchen realmente nuestros casos que hemos vivido, que hemos pasado. Esto es algo real, no es algo de estadísticas de otro estado. Esto me ha hecho amar a mi comunidad como hispana, como latina, no tener miedo a hablar en público, no tengo miedo a estar pidiendo lo que son la seguridad a mi comunidad, más que nada. Nos hemos enseñado a reportar, a decir lo que vivimos. Y esto es algo real, esto es algo transparente. Me gusta la transparencia como líder comunitaria. Y los invito de verdad, caminemos en cada comunidad, yo los acompaño. Realmente esto sería una experiencia maravillosa, escuchar a nuestros residentes de todos los vecindarios de San José. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Maria. I think I saw another hand, but maybe they lowered their hands. Lori, I think you had a comment, then we'll go to Blair.
Yeah, so I just want to mention to everybody here, if everybody saw the shooting that happened at La Victoria, and how Maria's saying how cops have to deal with dangerous people. There was a young man who unarmed somebody with a gun without having to kill him. And that man was shot by the police because the police didn't say, stay back, evaluate the situation and find out. And so there's a young man sitting in the hospital who actually disarmed the person who had the gun without anybody else getting hurt. But the only person who got hurt was the man who disarmed the guy who had the gun. So police, if they could learn how to do that, disarm people, how much more safer would our community be? So it's not true. Police just use guns to kill us, to kill people, because that's what they're taught to do. They don't know how to react, how to save lives. They're right away act in fear. That young man who was 20 years old, I commend him. He disarmed somebody and he ended up getting shot by San Jose PD. Because why? Because they don't follow policy, because they don't follow protocol, because they're just too quick to shoot. So I think everybody watch that video, pay attention, and see how they're trying to change the narrative now. Police are trying to blame the guy who had the gun for the reason why they shot the other guy. No, that's their fault they shot. Now, the other guy, he's going to be held accountable for him having a gun, whatever that is, but you cannot charge that guy that had the gun for the fact that they caused San Jose PD to shoot. That was their own doing, and people pay attention to what they're saying, the narrative they're trying to switch around. That 20-year-old man is sitting in the hospital when he shouldn't be, because he saved people's lives from getting hurt. He disarmed somebody, he fought it, and he got it away without having to hurt anybody. That's a hero. That's what we need in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Blair.
Hi, thanks. Blair Beekman, thanks a lot for the meeting today. Really informative. I hope the information you offered, it seems YouTube worthy, just to offer what the Youth Commission offered. Good luck for the youth group. Good luck. I wanted to thank you for Lori's comments a lot. I wanted to comment that I want to comment on a few things, and boy, I had 3 things, and now I'm down to 1. I can only remember at this moment. I get so angry at my brain sometimes. The one thing, I'm saddened by the SRO issue in San Jose, and apparently I've heard they're going to be raising the number of SRO people. What's gone wrong? I mean, I think we could have, done something to have at least made it, even as in years before, not possibly less, but definitely not more. And I'm interested how we can work to bring that down to, pre-2020 levels. Thank you. And also to quickly offer with Vision Zero issues, I'm sure everyone here has friends who are working real hard on public safety and bicycles and neighborhood safety, all the good stuff. Learn how, openness and accountability practices really need to be an important part of the future of Vision Zero work, and your needs for funding, it really has to be open and accountable. I mean, we have new ways of counting statistics, and I don't think we're giving that enough acknowledgement. And I really hope we work on that and acknowledge it and be honest with our asks and not go overblown and overboard. It's a lot of work, and I don't want to be mean or anything, but just good luck how it can be open and accountable. That's our future, and we got to learn to work that way. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Beekman. Looking at the participants and seeing no more additional comments, I move forwards adjourning this meeting and wishing everyone a good evening and a good night. Thank you so much, everyone.
Good job, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you for all the members of the council. Fantastic work.